Welcome to E360 TV, the live streaming and on-demand destination for influential voices and enlightened audiences. We offer trending, grassroots, and purpose-driven content across a diverse range of interests. E360 TV is more than just watching programs. We offer the ability to interact with live shows connecting audiences to real, authentic influencers and storytellers while streaming to millions of devices. Real experiences. Raw conversations. One destination for it all. E360 TV.
You and I are kind of similar. You may even be more good-hearted than me. I feel like you. Well,
but in our longing hearts, we're all the same.
Mutual respect and
Yes.
a boundary might have been crossed
Yes.
that you, right?
That's
So
correct.
just an example
That's a
of,
good example.
it is a great example. I appreciate that for
Yes.
giving me the example to even work with.
Let's be the change we want to see.
I've never seen differences negative. I've always been attracted to and intrigued by it. But we're looking for how are we similar? How are we the same? How can we all just get along?
We are links in a chain. Unimportant.
Yes, sir.
Hey.
What's up, everybody? How we doing? Good morning, good afternoon, good evening from wherever you're tuning in from. This is Working It Out Across Generations, the show where we talk all things conflict, big and small. And with our professional background in conflict resolution, we try to give some tips for reconciliation. I'm one of your hosts, Justin.
And I am your other host, Dr. Lynn.
Yeah, and today we got a really, really cool topic. We're going to be talking about which generation is screwing up this communication thing the most. I'm going to let Dr. Lynn get into where this idea came from. It was really more her idea. So
Yes, it was
Take
one
the
of
thing
my
away.
ideas. And I'm not trying to be mean. We're all screwing up, but we're also doing some things that are good. But I am a TV person, meaning that I write scripts. I have been in the world and the interest of entertainment since I was little, really. Just I love in particular breaking down scripts, like how did they do, what was the writing like? Justin can tell you, if we're watching for
Big
the
finger
action,
kid.
yeah, I'm like, oh my gosh, the writing. And
Big
I
finger
watched this Netflix drama called Forever because a lot of people were talking about it. And whether you liked it or not, I really felt the communication style stood out. They just spoke to me, and they spoke to me generationally. So I just felt like we need to be talking about this because yes, it's a script, but it's based on the things that people are doing and the way in which they are communicating. And I think that there is a huge generational difference. And then there are things that we are, in my generation and a little younger, are passing on or have passed on that aren't the greatest things, or that we're still doing that we just need a little help. And I'm including myself in that because I was not raised by two great communicators. My mother yelled more than she talked, and my dad didn't want to talk at all unless my mom was not present. So for me, communication stands out, and I thought this one is a great thing. So if you haven't seen it, or even if you had, there's two main characters, Keisha, who's played by Lovey Simone, and Justin, who's played by Michael Cooper Jr., and they reunite after having not seen each other since elementary school. They reunite at a party. They have different lives, and they then get into, and here's my first point. Here's my first thing. A relationship, but not a relationship, but they're not sure if they're in a relationship until like after a year. Then they talk about, oh, I guess we've been in a relationship, sort of in and out. And for me, I'm like, what? Because communication, like really good communication, to me would clear it up. Anyway, that's my first take, and you can say what you'd like to say about this.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'll just get into, I'll mix in my general thoughts with my generational take. But I mean, first off, if you haven't seen the show, it is a good show. I think it's a good show. I think it's a good model for, honestly, the experience of a lot of people in that kind of dynamic, in that kind of, lifestyle and things of that nature. And communication is a big thing in regards to, I love how you talked about what gets passed on, right? And like in terms of what we teach each other and what we model for our young people, right? And so one of the things you'll notice is that, this kid, Justin, his mom, right,
go straight for the mom.
It's the show.
Yeah.
But the mom is very, I would say you give what you think. I would say like kind of hard-headed. I would say very result-driven. So in regards to how she speaks to her son sometimes, there's not a whole lot of, at least what you see in the show, I guess, like teaching him how to do the stuff that he needs to do and all that. It's kind of just like, this is what we need to get done. This is the biz, right? He's trying to get into college. He's trying to play sports in college, right? It's you need to do this, you need to do that, you need to do this, and you have time for nothing else. And that's just where your focus needs to be, due to, of course, wanting her son to have the life that, she envisions for him, but also, the life that he envisions for himself and more, right? I think one of the great things that you'll see is that, the dad does a great job of, kind of being calm and composed, but also I think closing and clearing up gaps between those two because they kind of butt heads a lot, right? He's young. He's about to be going into his senior year of high school, right? He just met this great girl and reconnected with her. He obviously wants to start having some fun, letting loose, right? There's also some other stuff, around social anxiety and things like that for him. But other than that, he's really starting to break out of his shell. And, his mom says, his dad says, if anything, your mom's not mad at you for, making a mistake or doing whatever, right? She's just fearful for you. She's scared.
That's such a deep statement.
And I think that's a very, very deep statement. And I think that, it gets misconstrued, at least, as a young person, really what the difference between the two, right? In the expression of care and the expression of, keep a heads up or an eye out for these things, right? That line is very thin for us from, if this person's mad at me or this person, maybe thinks less of me, then, they're just looking out and feeling nervous in this moment. I think that another thing is that, parents often don't, and you probably didn't see or hear this, but parents often don't tell their kids things like, I'm nervous, like this scares me, I'm afraid for you, like these kinds of decisions lead to this and this makes me nervous, right? And I think that that's such a societal message that we put on parents to like not humanize, honestly, some of their own feelings that come up in this figuring it out as you go kind of profession of being a parent and raising the next generation. And so as a young person, right, I think the way that those things can show up in our own relationships and our own generations, the things that will kind of like uphold and upkeep, right, as we move on, is this like withholding of information because we don't want to make the other person fearful, right? Like we don't want to put the people we love in fearful positions, fearful feelings, fearful headspaces, and any of that nature. And so we'll withhold whatever's going on. We'll isolate. We'll do all those things, which my generation struggles a lot with, right? When things go on and life, takes a hit at you, we isolate. We definitely can kind of lock ourselves away and have our headphones on for a few hours, or be on the game for longer
all of
than
that
usual.
was in this,
and that's in the show,
yeah,
due to a lot of the communication that was coming from his mom, but also I think just from his dad being different. He's isolating to try to wrestle between the two, what he more identifies with. Right. And I've always said that young people are, it's not that we're not valid, valuable, all these things, right? But young people are simply more emotional and have less language due to how long they've been here, like compared to parents and like.
But I also think it's because we don't necessarily teach the language, right? Also,
yeah, I agree.
Right? I mean, it's not being taught in schools and as adults. So I resonate with the mom because, yeah, there's a lot of fear that happens in parenting. But also the thing is, I had a mom who did not set the climate for me talking to her, even though she said, you can talk to me about anything, but she didn't set the climate for that. Very much like this mother, like watching her, I got it. I understood. She was really trying to do the best, right? And say that she wanted the best for him, but she kept coming for him. Like her first, I think we got to think about the fact that what you say first in any situation, especially with your teen, with your child, is going to impact the rest of the conversation.
I agree. Coming from a family who's very foundational about setting the tone, right? Coming out strong, being clear. I just know the benefits to what that's done for my communication within my own generation, and then in the multi-generational rooms that I'm in literally every single day for work, personal, and for plenty of reasons. So
like how many young people do you hear saying, I tell my parents so much?
Because I don't hear. Okay. People have said to me growing up for a while, and more in high school, but I think that's a very formative time, right? Like high school is a very formative time to ask questions, to make mistakes, to, yes, have that those sit downs where you're like, yo, this is how this works. And I need you thinking, in this way, right? However, kids were saying to me all the time, like, I wish I had your parents, based off of how much I was able to talk to my parents about quite literally everything. There was not a question that I couldn't ask my parents. There was not a conversation that we couldn't have. Granted, we're humans. Things came up. Emotions
we made lots of mistakes, y'all.
We both made lots of mistakes. I made lots of mistakes as a young person. They made mistakes as, I wouldn't say parents, but as people in communication with a child, I would say, right? Like those are natural things. I would say parenting mistakes, right? I just feel like that's like,
parents are gonna make
mistakes. I feel like that's a stance. I don't know. I feel like that's a stance, how it is. But like, I just, I'm humanizing the fact that you guys as parents, and have been humanizing, you guys as parents are figuring out this life thing as you go too. And I think that if a parent is able to say that to their child, it just guards go down, you know what I mean? Walls go down, like everything gets just, you're more receptive, all those things. And my parents had no problem saying, yo, like what you're doing right now is making me like, this is too much. I'm stressed. This is making me nervous, And, we got to have at least a conversation about where your head is at right now in this moment and how we can better support you. Right. And I just think that,
but at the same time, you were just such your own person. And so, again, as I've said in many shows, so into, I felt like if I was too flawed, right, out front, it would continue to influence this idea you had about why do I need parents? Like, you're in charge of me and you're making all these mistakes, but it didn't go that way.
I agree. I just think that we are natural as young people. We're natural students, and like we are respectful of at least the time spent on this planet, when it comes to the adults in our lives. And so we just know that you guys have a different vantage point than us. And so I think when you don't use it, when you don't use that vantage point, when you don't welcome all of, the things that come with having reached that point, and that those answers and that wisdom and that all of those things, right, which is its own process as itself, as you go up the ladder. I just think when you don't use it well, then, we're probably going to try to go and do our own thing and whatever. I'm a different case. I came out the womb thinking, I'm the man and I'm going to do what I want and what I need to do. And I know me better than anyone else, which I stand on to this day.
And which I think is a great attitude.
However, right, there is a balance to everything. Yes. And I just know for me, you can say whatever you want. I've always said, I don't know what I don't know. I need help with this. I've always been vocal about asking for help, and that comes from the foundation that my parents laid for me.
But that don't mean he's gonna take the help, y'all. It just sometimes
means
he's gonna listen.
It also means your advice wasn't always good. So let's just let's just move on from that. Your advice wasn't always good. So anyone with a brain. I just want to say,
I cancel that.
I just want to say, parents,
cancel culture.
Parents, sometimes the best advice or the best answer sometimes is what you're really feeling, especially for your child, especially when it comes to allowing yourself to have the natural human feelings and reactions that are coming up to uncomfortable situations. I think sometimes, even when you don't know, that is a better answer than trying to give some sort of something to sound and look like you are this authority who has been here for so long, and
or sound and look like your parents.
That's
right. I mean, that's where a lot of times
that's how we keep these things going, and then that's how we keep honestly putting BS in each other's ears. So
I want to talk about the kind of things that your generation made. I mean, I'm on edge. Sitting on edge because I love this show. I love Forever, right?
Great.
But I'm also sitting on edge with the texting. I mean, just all the different kinds of communication. Okay, right? Oh my gosh. So one of the things that I noticed, right, is Justin in the show, when he was in person, thank you, Justin. Thank you, writers. When he was in person, he could say what he needed to say. Hard. Yes, there were times when he didn't always make it, but in the beginning when he wasn't able to, she had blocked him and they finally were able to talk, he really said the things that were in his heart and what he felt, and she did too. Keisha did too. The in-person communications were better than the texting, because the thing that drove me nuts, because I also know it's true, is the texting where the first thing that would come out is really what was in your heart, what you want to say, hard as it was, and then they go and erase it and say, cool. Or, I was like, oh, because...
I do that, so yeah.
But what's that about? What is that?
I think there's something about... That's just it's a very vulnerable thing, right? I think we can all agree on that. It's a very vulnerable thing to, put yourself out there, your feelings out there. And, really, I think the thing that scares us the most is, just the, inevitable fact that we don't know what people are going to do with our said feelings that we're going to communicate.
Especially if it's in writing, because y'all show each other. I mean,
we show each other everything. We put each other in the group chat.
Oh my God,
we absolutely dog each other, for real. We do. And we dog each other for, some of the most natural human things.
Right.
And I think that's where it starts to become unfunny, right? Like we talked, in another episode about, where's that line when it comes to, comedy and laughter and things of that nature, teasing, stuff like that, right? We know especially in our generation, right? Trash talk and talking down is part of building some of that societal muscle. We do think of it in that way, but it's a vulnerable thing. And I think that, again, I'm not saying to the parents on some like blaming you guys for us not being able to break through that. If anything, we're bringing up the multi-generational stuff to talk about what gets transferred on without even us like knowing it, like what are we passing on as a from an evolution standpoint, right, to the next generations, and what's working and what's not. It's really just a discernment of what's working and what's not. And so again, not trying to play the blame game. I just think that we got a great comment as you're touching stuff. Thanks. Yeah. It's actually one of the times you touching stuff worked out in my favor. I'm talking. I want this one.
You want that?
I want this one.
The next one.
This ain't about you. Right?
All right, go ahead.
But Andrew, you said it. As parents, we did the best with what we have. Right. This is your first go at being a parent, even if you have multiple children. That's right. Correct. It's your first go. Damn near every time. You know what I mean? That you do it. And so
each child's different.
It's all different. Right. My brother and I are very different. So absolutely, you did the best with what you could. So it's really not a blame thing. It's a, what did your parents teach you? What did you uphold from what they taught you? Like, is that something you think is a good thing in your life or not? And then, really started to pose those questions for us. And I think that, we don't start early enough too. I think that's another thing. We've been doing family circles for I don't even know how long.
Since you were a baby, when you couldn't even talk yet.
Right, where we all had an opportunity to talk about what was coming up for us during the week. With living with each other, with going to school together, and all of that stuff. And we all had an opportunity to speak. And so again, when it comes to just like foundation setting, that's like it's literally in relation to, the earliest point, right? Like what's the building blocks? Like what are those first pieces that we're going to put down that set the foundation for everything else? And I think that we got to start earlier rather than later, because these are seniors in high school. They're about to go to college and they don't even know how to talk to each other. Like, what do you think they're going to do when they're at a party? What do you think they're going to do when, just it's heightened and it's more pressure, when they have a boss that they don't like and they really can't talk back, like whatever it is. I think that as soon as you start these things, then the easier it gets later on. So
so I'm to go back to the blocking got on my nerves. Yes, I was like, just talk, work through it. Good Lord. Oh my goodness, were we watching it together? Because that was what I was saying. That's for sure.
Our block lists are pretty long too. I don't know a single young person that doesn't have a long block.
Wow.
A young person.
Wow. I mean, let's go generation my day. You just hung up on the person, right? Or maybe because before there was what was it? Caller ID. You didn't know who was calling. You had to answer the phone, or your parents answered the phone. They never said, like, they made the decision as to whether or not you was going to talk to the person. And my mother or my dad never like covered the phone and like, to Elizabeth, but like they just said, here's for you. So you could talk to the person, and hanging up was considered rude, so you couldn't always do that. But to go back to this whole thing around texting, like y'all have so much evidence of your stuff, but I don't know how you do it. I mean, so again, being vulnerable has to be something very scary, because even this show involves a sex tape, right? And that got around, and text, people screenshot them, and the most we had was letters, and trying to get a boy to write you a letter, man. Are you kidding? So if you did get one, you definitely showed it to your girlfriend. That's like, all right, letters, you had to remember what they said to you over the phone, or what all right, while you were out on a date. Come on. That's where we came from. And I'm not saying we did a great job of communicating as well, but I think there's so many barriers today to it for you all that the communication isn't as good. Like the times when they really talked were so good, and then they'd stop, get to the end. I don't want to do spoiler alert, but there was just a scene where I'm like, but you were doing so well, Justin. Why are you climbing up now. Same thing for her. Like, what happened? Why isn't this a consistent pattern? And I think because there's just too many other options that can make you, that can shield you. So that you don't have to say those things. So then, like a year will pass in the TV show, right? A year passed, now you saying, last year when come on, like you could have said it and had all of this relationship. So I don't have to wonder why y'all didn't know that y'all was in a relationship for a whole year, because y'all just never said it. And in my generation, that would never happen. You want to be my girl, it was clear.
And I'll give you a clear example of how we've taken, the blocking thing and ran with it.
Okay.
Which is not something that came from your generation, right? Totally taking accountability for us. We're so honestly twisted up in this and in this way of thinking that somehow, some way, in some dynamics, the blocking is an indicator of like that being someone you are serious with, or can be potentially serious with, or whatever it is, right? It's somehow, some way become like, like if this person blocks me, right? And if I call them on like, on a block number, whatever, right? Like star 67 it, right? And they answer, then they love me, and they really, it's
what's star 67?
It's when you call from like, it's not a fake number, but it goes through blocked.
Lord.
Like if you're blocked, you just dial star 67 and then the person's number. And it's like for us, it's like, if they answer, like they still love me and they're still thinking about me. Again, it's the stuff we've taken and ran with. And so, that's something I hope my generation definitely doesn't, teach their kids when it's, because we're going to be adults. So I hope when it's our turn to be parents, we don't say, that boy really loves you, or that girl really loves you.
You're going to send a robot to their house. Your kids will send a robot to their house to
deliver a message, right? Like, and walk home. I don't know, something, but I hope that's not a message that we pass on. That's
wow. I didn't
only
even know
been
that.
a thing that's made us miss out, like you said, on real potential connection. So
and it definitely works both ways. And I mean, even so, we're talking about like the generations. So the dad had the best communication I've ever seen, and I love that they gave that role to the dad, the man, right? Because that's not usually, if you're going to give a communicator, somebody who really communicates well, that's not usually that. Maybe a grandparent. Right, usually they do like a grandmother or something, but maybe a grandfather. And I think Keisha's grandfather, he wasn't that great either at communicating, but that could have been his role. Instead, they gave it to Justin's dad, and he did it so beautifully well. Because one of the things that I really liked is that he also pushed back on Keisha's mom to be like, hey, you just take things too far. Like he really, with love, but very, very, firm, like, hey, look at what's happening. And I think that we have to, as a generation, look at what are the results we're getting, because we really want to say, well, I just want us to be close, but we're not doing the work to make that happen, or we're certainly not picking up on the signals that that's not what's happening here. So we need to do something different in the way that we are communicating. So we decided we want to do some work on each other's generation. Talk about what are the things that the three things that generations between 40s. No, I'm sorry. I'm mine is generations between teens and 30s, what y'all can improve on, right? So I think talking more face to face. I don't get it. I don't understand. I understand that you spend good time away from each other, but why can't you talk face to face? I even hear guys say sometimes, girls love to do FaceTime. I don't want to do FaceTime. I don't want it. Like, let's text. oh, I'll do the phone if I have to, but I don't want to do the face-to-face. And I feel like you're missing so much when you don't do that. You can't see expressions. You really can't pick up the vibe. And so many things can go awry. You could say one thing and you can tell from the look on that person's face that that's not really what they mean. And if you have good communication style, maybe you can try to draw it out. So I would like y'all to do more talking face to face.
I agree.
Oh.
I fully agree. I'm someone, if anything, who likes FaceTime due to the fact that it's the closest thing at times to me being face to face with you. But other than that, I fully agree. I think that this is something that, we need to work on. And I think that it's something that, we just need to get more comfortable with, and we will and can over time. And, I think that, with a lot of the skills we talk about here, but, a lot of people have access to these communication things that we're talking about. And I think they actually got to use it. You know what I mean? Like, you got to actually use the skills that people are saying, give this a try. Like, look in the mirror and, do this work with yourself, right? Like, all these things, I think we actually have to take that advice sometimes and try it to build that muscle for those very, very difficult, inevitable face-to-face conversations that we will have to have, that have nothing to do with like politics or nothing to do with social media and all that stuff. It has everything to do with who are you, what are you feeling, where are we going in life, where are we right now? Like, those are very, very deep conversations that come up not only for yourself, but especially if you're going to get in a relationship, build a family, all these different things, right? The conversations are probably the, least of your worries as far as like the actual stuff that's going to come up. So build that muscle for sure. I agree.
But here's the thing. I got to ask this. I don't understand I'm going to sleep with you with the phone on.
That's
like, what is that? No, they did it in the movie too.
No, that's high school. Middle school, high school.
What?
No one does that in college.
Because you're not. Okay, I can see if you're staying up all night talking and trying to learn about each other and understand each other and get through. But that's not what's happening. So I don't know.
I'm just very clear that ain't nobody past the age of 20, 22 or like whatever, 21 probably is doing that. That was just a clarifier.
Oh, okay. All right.
No chance.
All right. So the next one is reactional blocking. Now you threw something else in the game, which is the blocking sometimes is a test to see how much wow. But the reactional blocking, right? I guess we had it with the hanging up, right? I think we did more of I'm going to hang up on you, right? If you keep whatever, as opposed to you doing something and then you're saying something to me hanging up. But the reactional blocking is it just stops so many things. And then I don't know if it's true the way they did in the film. Then he had to go to a friend, and can you just like then you're involving other people and you're telling your business. Like I just what is, can y'all look at that? That's all I'm asking. Like you're blocking because you had a reaction to something instead of just allowing the reaction. You could even say the reaction, or you could even ask for a timeout, but then you got to block the person. And some people just go wild because they were blocked. Like that is like the biggest insult for them.
Yeah, people have made blocking some people have made blocking a part of their like personality, of like how they vet people, right? I've seen it more in girls, I'll be quite frank, right? But it is like if you do this, blocked. If you do that, blocked. If you say this in a way I don't like, blocked. If you don't agree with how I move in this way, blocked. If you don't, and it's like, where's the openness to conversation if I can't even voice to you my natural reaction to something that I either am indifferent about or that I've just never been exposed to, right? Like I think, with the natural evolution of life, right? There's just so many more options of things you can do to, live your life and live a fulfilled life, right? There's not one way to do that anymore, or not, just three select ways to do that anymore. And so people have, I've definitely seen that before of like, move like this, you're getting blocked, do this, you're getting blocked. And it's like, no one wants to be around people like that personally.
Well,
in my generation, no one wants to be around.
Well, this is the place where I think our generation, our folks have learned from y'all. Because I know some grown folk
Really?
who are black people. Like, yes, the person they're in relationship with. I'm not talking about a friend. And even then, come on, it's probably because you don't know or want to express something that's a conflict. But yes, I know some grown folk in a relationship. Block. I'm like,
I call out my generation for that, but
yes, we learned from you.
I call out whatever adults are listening to young people on that one. We have a lot of other good stuff, but that one is a very scary one for you guys to be listening to yourself.
Yes, so picking it up. Yes, I agree.
That's a grown age.
Yep, that's true though. I'm not exaggerating. And the last one, the third thing I gotta say is saying what you really think or feel. Say it. I know it may be scary in the text, and I understand because I'm just the one that said y'all put everything in writing. Like that's scary. But if you're typing it out because that's really what you feel, and especially if you're in a relationship, and please know that you are in one or not in one. Let me get that straight right up front. But I know that's the other thing. Then we talk about relationships. So like, what do y'all say? Let's not give it titles or something like that.
We're not.
Yeah, not labels. Labels,
yeah.
Right. Okay, fine. Fine.
I don't want to go there.
Yeah, because we're not talking about relationships. We're not talking about communication.
Yeah, that's a tough one.
Okie dokie.
Yeah,
but anyway, saying what you really think or feel. I would love to see y'all from teens till 30s really being able to do that and take that risk with each other. At least if for nothing else, that you've put the truth on the table. I think we worry too much about what the other person's going to think or if we're going to hurt their feelings when the reality is truth is the truth.
Yeah.
Right. It can be said different ways. Yeah. So you're not trying to lay down the truth to, throw bullets at them, but that you really are just, hey, this is the reality. This is how I feel when she tells the truth about Howard. Like that. I loved that in the film because you could see it, but she wouldn't say it. Yeah.
I agree. Mm-hmm. I agree. I think you just become more vulnerable over time. And, it's just better to build those muscles sooner than later. I just hands down, excuse me, across all, facets of life, because it affects all aspects of your life, right? Like start sooner than later. Seriously, it's just going to make everything down the line easier to approach. Not always easier to get through for us, but it's going to make it easier to approach. So those difficult conversations are going to be difficult, but you're going to feel more equipped. So I like that a lot.
All right, what you got for us, for our generation?
So many things, but I had to.
You had to narrow it down.
I had to narrow it down to 3, and to an hour because we don't have an hour with each other, and we're already 30 minutes now.
Wow.
No, but I got 3 good ones for y'all, and I think these work. So number 1, I'd say be mindful of undertones. I think that this is something y'all don't realize that you're like not being as aware of in the moment, right? Like I think that I still am hearing messages or undertones of like, well, you're just a kid, so what would you know, right? Mm-hmm. Like even at someone who's like 23, right? Or like, well, why would I talk to you? Like, what do you know, right? Mm-hmm. How could you help me, right? As if that's just not another person in front of you who's got another set of eyes, who has another set of ears, who has another brain to just bounce ideas off of with you. And I think that we pick up on undertones, honestly, more than the actual message that you're trying to put across to us in some situations and in some dynamics, similar to Justin and his mom in the show, right? And so I think that it's something just to be mindful of. You can feel that way, right? Like, okay, I don't really like that I'm coming to, my child for any sort of, like, what do you think, right? But, take that leap. And I think that, we'll at the end of the day ultimately land on the fact that you took that leap is, bigger than whatever undertones that could have possibly come out that we will pick up on. So it's just an ultimate at the end of the day kind of thing that's going to help you guys in terms of, just how you communicate, especially to the young people in your life.
Yeah, I think Keisha's mom's undertones, she even did express it at one point. He wasn't in the room. She was talking to his dad, and she was like,
Justin's mom or Keisha?
I'm sorry, Justin's mom.
Right.
Sorry. Justin's mom, she was like, he's not ready. He's not ready. And that to me was really the way her conversations always started. The undertone of, I still need to tell you what to do because you just don't know what to do, or you can't be trusted to know what to do, or to figure it out on your own, and there was a lot of sarcasm in her. And again, I get the reasoning behind it, but I think that it just wasn't, it's not the way to go, especially if you want to have really good communication. And it just never ended. She just never got the message that it wasn't. And she got mad at the dad. They had a great relationship, though. They really did. Mom and dad have a great relationship. But she got mad at him because he couldn't see her point. And he was just like, you just really pushed too hard. But in any case, I get the undertones thing. I know I'm still working on that. I know I am still working on that, because it was definitely implanted in me. I got nothing but undertones to the point, even as a grown woman, I'm talking about in my 30s, right? I got nothing but undertones.
Yeah. We are thinking, through what this person is saying, what are they really like trying not to say? Yeah. So just to closing the gap there for that right there. Next, I'd say recognize the future. This, I mean, from just a natural evolution standpoint, I think that there is and are struggles in some adults with passing the baton, right? And I think that due to that, I think part of what speaks to those struggles are the fact that y'all are very traditional people, and tradition, you're based in your traditions, right? We do things a certain way. We have seen it work for so long and all this stuff. It's just the way things are. I still hear that from so many adults, but this is the way things are. So why is our culture? So why are things changing, or why are we trying? And that's literally blocking the natural stages of evolution. And so I think it's one of those things where, you have to kind of let us tell you what's worked, what hasn't, what traditions we're going to keep on with, which ones we're going to ditch. And being that we are, very outspoken of that stuff, right? Part of you actually have to allow yourselves to honestly shut up and listen, and not do any of the whole, oh, well, you're just a kid, so what would you know? And you're just we're the new generation. We're the ones out there every single day, seeing how things are changing and reporting how people are dealing with those changes. And yet we get overlooked as, well, you're just too young. So what would you know? And we have plenty of young people who are more than qualified for the position in that company, for this position in government, for whatever, right? However, we're blocking the natural stages of evolution by not allowing them to say, this has worked, this hasn't, this is something that's landing for people, and let's keep funding this, right? Or this isn't working and this is damaging people. And then because we don't get heard, we feel like we're not adding anything to the table, which makes us want to break the table altogether. And so I just think for you guys, recognize the fact that I'm not trying to call you guys old. I'm sorry. I'm not, and I won't. I won't, and I'm not. I'm just saying you're not getting any younger. Oh. And we are only
getting any younger.
We are only getting older. So
yes. Okay.
Based on evolution, okay. You guys have to literally start stepping back a little bit. You have to. So okay. That's just how I go with it.
Okay. Well, recognize the future. I think that's going to be a hard one for elders, for people who are older. I think it is because we, as you said, we're not as exposed. I mean, I am more exposed than a lot of people my age because I'm an entrepreneur and I have to be like out on things like social media and I have to know what are the things that are going on. But I think that traditionally, particularly as parents, but even just as people, there's been this reliance on what came before.
Mhm.
Right. And so I don't disagree. I just think this one flips everything on its head because now the people that are more in charge or that really know how things are operating are the people that are younger than you and even your children. Right. It reminds me very much of immigrants whose first language is not English when they come here, right? The kids are usually the translators, and then I mean even young kids, right? And so that flips the power dynamic very
A little
much
bit
so.
in that way.
Very much so. Because remember, you gotta that's a power to translate what somebody else is saying to your parent. And you can leave out all the stuff you want that you don't want them to know. And I've seen that happen. Right.
It's definitely easier said than done. I love that. I love that you said that because that really is what it is. It's an easier said than done. It's just I think that's just a part of the natural evolution process.
I think that's what is happening.
Let's have the discussions of what's working and what's not, and be open and more open-minded with the stuff that we don't want to hear, unfortunately.
Yeah, and recognizing the future too for elders especially means that you got to have a lot of things translated. You did the whole blocking thing, and know nothing about that, right? AI is changing the games tremendously. We know very little about that. Even youngins are learning about them, but they can pick it up really quick. This has just been a part of their world. So we got to trust them to tell us the things that are going on, and these are not things that we went through, particularly when you're talking about parenting. We didn't go through these things, so we do not have a base or foundation to go from to even tell you. Like a lot of the things that we could be telling you, are you like, there's no way that's gonna work. And why? Because you don't know what you're talking about. Because you don't live in that world. We do. So
Absolutely.
yeah.
Appreciate you on that. And then lastly, kind of tying, at least into the last one, right? Find the cool in your stage of life, right? I think that, 40 and up and like those are, I see those as like vantage points, right? Like at least every 10 years or, whatever, right? And I think that, of course, another easier said than done, right? I'm not 40 and up, right? So I can't speak to the ones who feel like they've kind of, lost the joy out of being younger, right? Or whatever it is. I can't speak to that.
Right.
But I can say, like, on the flip side, having lived through so much, having seen so much, having so much data, right? Having seen shifts in society and being able to adapt and flow and all those things, right? I think that it's a cool thing to reach those higher ages, right? Like I think the wisdom that comes from it, right? When you allow yourself to say, like, yeah, this is where I'm at, and I've seen these things, and this is how it goes, right? I think that's just a really cool thing, and I think a lot of adults struggle with finding or seeing that as a cool thing, right? Maybe the fact that they honestly can't do the same things that I guess a 20-something-year-old could do, right? But we can't do things that y'all could do at 40, 50, whatever it is, right? Like, and just finding the yin and yang in it. I think that I've been exposed to more, to be quite frank, outside of my family and whatever. I don't want to say like miserable, but like unhappy adult, like just like angry adult, like in those ages,
their life is over.
Like their life was over, and like there's no joy. Like, and it came a lot from teachers. That's another thing, right? Where I'm a young person, I'm around you all the time, and this is the energy you're bringing, and it's like, I'm thinking about when the good days were good. This is like, it seemed like they found the cool in the fact that there was information that they had that I didn't, right? And that they were happy to share that information. all those things. I just think that it's one of those things where you got to be able to find the cool in the fact that you've lived through so much, seen so much. You haven't been broken by that so much. And you know, you want to pass it on to the next so that they can be even stronger. I think that's a cool power. And I don't think all adults in those ages see it that way. And I think that's very unfortunate. So it's not a loss. I don't think of it as a loss. I think of it as such a gain to already such an extensive garage of tools that you as adults have. But I can't make you see the cool in it. Like, you have to see it as cool, you know, like, because there's always going to be a young kid who's going to, you know, disregard what you say, think, whatever. But those ones that are real stewards of life and are curious and are, you know, inquiring about, you know, just what do I need to do here? Like, how, like, help me out. Give me a little guidance, right? I think that, you know, those are such capitalizing moments that really can shape the future. And if you allow yourself to, you know, accept that role, it just makes the flow of, you know, evolution of life, I think, much easier. So,
yeah, I think that it's good. It's good advice, period. But when you talk about communicating, I think you can make who you are and what you've been through cool, if that's or relatable. Maybe it's less about being cool and more about just being relatable. The not feeling like you know more, therefore you must tell. But also, I kind of make a joke out of the fact that, and Justin is not always laughing when it's like he says, don't touch stuff. Don't touch stuff for a reason, because there are things I just don't know. I'm getting better at it, but there are things that I don't know. And it's like, hey, can you help out with this? Because I would rather just go straight to the expert. Mm-hmm. I want to learn things on my own, yes, but if it's not coming, or if I want to learn something, I can say, can you teach me? Because I've already subscribed to the fact that you know, right, better than I do. What's interesting is my mom actually researched everything. So she knew a lot of things that I didn't know as a young person, not because I was young, but because she was interested in so many things that were coming up in life. She wanted to know about computers, and she ended up, you know, working in computers and being really amazing at it. She wanted to know about when VCRs came out. Like, there were things she knew that I didn't know because she researched. And that to me was cool, right? Because I'm the young person. I didn't know this. You know it. I know, but now it's the reverse. And I think that we do need to, as a generation, we need to just say, hey, there's some real cool things about being who I am, or living the life that I lived, or what I've learned. And I want to hear about the cool things about your generation, being you. And that's the other piece I'll say about that. Let's not put the generation down, right? Let's understand that there are a lot of differences in the ways that they do things, because those things weren't available to them.
Right. Absolutely. So I think great show, you know, this show, and then Forever's a great show. If you want to check it out, it's on Netflix. 1 season, 8 episodes.
But they got renewed.
Oh, so that's kind of cool. I'm excited for that.
Yes.
And again, I think, you know, watch this back, watch that show. You'll see a lot of the stuff we're talking about through there, because we really did use it as a point of entry, really,
point of entry,
and all that to this conversation. And so, again, all this stuff is easier said than done. We are people who are learning with you, alongside you, on our own journey, and then on a collective journey. So please don't think that we have all the answers. We're a monolith that you should be coming and, you know, listening to every word we say. We hop off these things and say, I don't really agree with that. Or I don't really, you know, like we're learning as we go. And so that's my last words on it. And that was great. That was great.
Yeah, I'm going to say I loved it. I love this show. I think it just gives such marvelous examples. If you haven't seen it, then please use this show as a reason to go check it out and to see it from that vantage point, because there is a lot to discover. And you may be like me. You may see yourself in some of the ways that people are communicating.
Absolutely. So if you enjoyed working it out across generations this week, tune in to e360tv.com, Trajectory Channel, Roku, Amazon Fire TV, Apple TV. Pretty sure there's more subscriptions out there, so and licensing. So we got to get all of those up for you guys. But also follow us on Facebook, Working It Out TV show. You can catch us live there. Also on YouTube, subscribe here, Working It Out Across Generations. And if you'd like to send us any love, send us any questions, send us any, not hate, but like, you know, I guess like difference of opinion and all that stuff, right? That's always welcome. Or show topics. You just want to send anything to us, please. This is our email, Working It Out Across the Generations at e360tvlive.com. Guys, you know what we say? Small is all here. We are building to something bigger than us. So every like, every follow, every subscription, every view, every comment, every piece of engagement truly means the world to us. And I'm grateful to have this space, grateful to be working with you. And, you know, we're having some great conversations. We're just trying to make this conversing thing a little bit easier every day. That's it. So,
yep. And you know what we say, conflict is here to teach you something about yourself. So go out there and find out what it is.
Yeah, I'm Justin.
And I am Dr. Lynn.
See you next week.
Yes.